Hey students, welcome back. I have not posted a video for my virtual kids in a little bit of time. This week, this is what we have been working on. We were creating a still life, and the still life was based off of an actual real life object. So the initial one that I showed you guys, I started with a bunch of lifesavers, and I proceeded to completely lose that picture. I have no idea what I did with it. I think I gave it to somebody by accident. So I have gone back and restarted. So rather than do candy this time, I personally really enjoyed drawing like bakery items and fruit and that kind of stuff. So I found this picture at the tart, and I printed it out. The reason that I printed it out is just easier for me to maneuver it and manipulate it. I have worked from my cell phone though too, and I have worked from life. And if you want to work from life, I totally encourage you to do that. However, I know that sometimes that's a little bit difficult. So here is the image, and here's what I'm working on. And so this blueberry here lines up to this blueberry. I don't know if you can see this, but I still have a little pencil line here, and that pencil line goes with that fold line there, and this pencil line here goes with that fold line. So my blueberry kind of sits on there, and I have the little circle that's kind of in the center of that. So that's kind of that area there. And I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. Now, as I do this, I'm laying in that kind of this dark area, but I'm leaving that lighter, and I am going to go back in and I'm going to start laying some tone down here. I had a young lady in class who she was working on a picture of Hershey's Kisses, and the Hershey's Kisses that are wrapped up, when they're photographed, the silver turns into like a lighter gray. But her other Hershey's Kiss, she was leaving it paper white. And I said, well, are you working on white chocolate? What are you working on? And she's like, oh, no, that's regular chocolate. And I'm like, okay, well, that should be a darker tone. And she looked at me and she's like, I was trying to figure out how to do that, and I didn't even think about that. And so I showed her how, like, even with a strawberry, I lay in an overall tone, and then I go back and I smooth it out. So those of you that are at home, if you have a shading stump, you can go ahead and blend this. If you need any of these materials, once again, please come over to school and get them. Just if you let me know you're coming, I can make sure that they're out there. But if you don't have a shading stump, you totally can use a tissue. And I did not use shading stumps until I got into college. That was just not a thing. We used tissues. If you have the fancy pencils, you are welcome to use your fancy pencils. If you don't have the fancy pencils, I have insisted on drawing this entire picture so far with my lovely National Guard pencil that I got for free from the National Guard visiting here. So here's my sphere, and what I'm doing is I'm kind of like looking at these dark areas and trying to color those in dark and getting kind of those lines and those shapes. This I'm going to end up erasing out here in just a minute. And so here I'm going to lay this in. Blueberries, so all these berries on my picture have a glaze on them, have like a sugar glaze, and so they're shiny. And it makes them a little bit trickier to shade, but not in a bad way, just in kind of a fun puzzle kind of way for me. But I am taking my time, and I've had a number of kids in class who've created something, and it's they draw what they think they see. In our head, we have created this entire realm of symbols. And so we have a symbol in our brain of what a blueberry looks like. We have a symbol in our brain of what a strawberry looks like. And learning to draw realistically, and this is what we're working on. We're working on like a level of photorealism. Learning to draw realistically is dropping that notion, that idea in our head that we think we know what something looks like. Uh, we don't. We don't have a good memory for photorealism. You do have artists that you'll see online who pop in a drawing, like Bob Ross, for instance, pops in a drawing, completely amazing, totally from his imagination. But this is after years and years and years. He spent 20 years on a Air Force base in Alaska doing these paintings. And so when he started his show in 1984, he had that entire lexicon, that entire idea built up in his head. He knew exactly what he was doing. But it took years and years and years for him to get there. And that's why when we were working on those in class anyway, I kept telling everybody, don't compare yourself to him. It's just like, don't necessarily compare yourself to me. I've had students that are better drawers than me. And that's really, really cool. But for the most part, most of us are still novices. We're still training ourselves. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you work a little bit harder to get to that point. But don't compare yourself necessarily to my stuff, because I'm 42 years old, and I started doing this when I was, 16. And not this well at 16. But I have quite a few more years under my belt than the majority of you do. And that's totally cool. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to blend that in. And there are areas that are now darker. At one point, I'm going to stop blending. And actually, it's probably now that I'm going to lay in my real dark. Every time I blend, I pick up. So you see that? I picked up graphite from my paper. And when I pick up the graphite from my paper, then I've lost some of the darkness. Once I get this completely drawn, I usually go back and I end up changing areas around. I'll realize, oh, wait a minute, this area needs to be darker because it is sitting behind that blueberry, so we need a darker shadow under here. Or this area down here needs to be shadowed in, and when I shadowed that area in, it makes the edge of that blueberry disappear, and the edge of that blueberry needs to be a little bit darker. So every bit of this is just a conversation between these different objects and how they work together. And there are instances where I do kind of change the image around because it doesn't translate well into a drawing. So that's me working on this. There are a lot of times that I will flip something over and I'll work on it upside down. And the reason that I work on it upside down, so this strawberry is that strawberry, it takes it from being what my brain is imagining it to be, so it takes the symbols and it makes the symbols it makes everything just a little bit foreign and a little bit alien, and it forces me to look at it a little bit more carefully and to pay better attention to it. So this strawberry I started working on yesterday, and it is a weird looking strawberry. And it's been a little tricky. And so there's this dark area here, and so I'm going to lay that in. So while you are working and finishing these up, these are due on Friday. If you have yours that are mostly gray, light gray, like mostly a single tone, when you open up the rubric where you grade yourself, you're going to have to mark the points off, because this project is supposed to be forcing you to really think about how light and dark things are, and you are trying to create as many values and as many tones as you can. So if you haven't done that, you're going to go ahead and mark yourself down. Now, rather than marking yourself down and losing points for something that you can do if you take the time, pull your project out and work on it. And take your time and really just kind of see what more you can do with it. This is what we're going to be doing with our Rockstar portrait in January. You're going to be working on a portrait of somebody with this level of shading and adding to it and building on it. So be prepared for that. And I know that it's tricky for those of you at home because I'm not like over your shoulder saying, hey, do this or hey, do that. If you are interested in pushing yourself, do me a favor, email me. Email me a picture of it and say, hey, I'm working on this. How can I make this better? And I will be more than happy to talk to you a little bit. And then obviously, any of my students, especially my virtual students, pop in today, pop in on a Wednesday. I try to pull up that Google Meet by noon. If I don't have it open by noon, just hang in there for a minute or two. And, come back at 12:05 or whatever, because sometimes I look up the clock and I'm like, oh, crap, I got to start that. So pop in and talk to me and show me what you're doing. But, so, there we go. We're working on it. It's coming along. Looks kind of interesting. Sometimes you start to see kind of the smudge marks. I'm not terribly worried about them right now, but as I'm drawing, I might lay a piece of paper down and keep myself, there, I got dirt on me. Not so much because I'm worried about my hand getting dirty, but because I don't want to actually smudge my work a lot here. But that's kind of where we're at. I will talk to you all later. Have a great day. And there we go.